Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name's Melina and today we're going to do a September wrap up. So let's get into it. So in September, I actually did a really good job sticking to my TBR. So my TBR consisted of Finale, 4 Weekends and a Funeral, The Breakup Pact, Heartstopper number 4, As Good as Dead, Nora Goes Off Script, Daydream, Too Busy for Love, and I also wanted to start or continue reading A Little Life. So I actually read every single one of those books, so let's just chat a little bit about each book. First up was Finale. This was the series finale for the Carvel series, and I really liked it. I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. I thought it was going to be different. I don't know how different. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a tell us story, but it actually was really cool because it was a dual POV between Scarlett and Donatella, and I thought that was really like super interesting. Each of them had kind of a separate plot line that intermingled throughout the story, and it gave me an ending I didn't really expect in a really pleasant way. I don't know if it's my favorite in the series, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of sad to be leaving these characters. I know that they have Spectacular, which I don't know if it's a fully fledged out novel or if it's a novella, but I'm so happy that I'm gonna get more of them. Next on my list was 4 Weekends and a Funeral. It follows a girl who was dating this guy and they'd broken up, but he ends up passing away and no one knows that they broke up, so his family still thinks that they're together. And so as a people pleaser, she kind of just does as much as possible to help them out. She helps out by like organizing some of the funeral things. She helps out then later on by helping clean out his apartment with her best friend, with his best friend, which sparks up some romance. There's a lot of self-discovery, I feel like, on her end more so than his, but I'm still not completely convinced on whether I liked it or not. Overall, I think I rated it like a 3.5 stars. There was just a lot of, I feel like the romance was completely lacking, and I also feel like, I don't know, I just wasn't connected to anybody, I think, in a way that I really should be. They brought up some really like difficult things that our main character was going through, and yet I still didn't feel like connected to her and her struggles and who she is as a person and why she is the way that she is. And so, I don't know, as cute as the cover is, and I thought I was going to love this one, I just found it to be very mids. So 3.5 stars. Oh, also, Finale, I would give it a 4.25. So next up on the list was The Breakup Pact by Emma Lord. This is actually my first Emma Lord book. This is not YA, which I know is her typical genre. This is just like a normal adult romance. And this follows 2 people. One is June, and she was being broken up with by her ex on live television and then becomes a crying meme. So people go to visit her bakery or tea shop because of these memes. And so then at the same time, her childhood best friend and someone she like was romantically connected with in high school, Levi, is going through something really similar where the person that he was dating is also like an online personality of some sort. Actually, I don't know if that's true. She left him and cheated on him to go and date a celebrity, and that's why he goes viral, because he was like left high and dry being cheated on. And so somehow they are reunited in this town after not talking to each other for 10 years after something that you don't really know what happened. And so they kind of learn to reconnect and regrow, and in some ways I really like this story. I really liked the aspect of like, I really liked them getting to know each other again, but honestly the biggest highlight of the story is June's personal journey, because June and Levi were both best friends with her older sister who passed away, and so that was their big connection. There was always like that Three Musketeers type situation, and when she passes, things are so different, but she picks up her sister's tea shop. It wasn't hers originally, it was her sister's. And so that journey of like not being able to let go of the past, but also wanting to move forward, but also not forgetting her sister, and that whole grief is written so well. It's such a beautiful like side plot, but I will say the romance did not convince me at all. I feel like they kind of jumped into it really quickly, And if 10 years have passed, I know people could hop back into a relationship as if no time has passed, but I also feel like they should have spent a little more time getting to know each other as new people, because 10 years have passed. They're not exactly the same person they were when they last were close. And I feel like that was what was lacking in this. I also rated this one 3.5 stars. Next up on the list was Heartstopper. No surprise, this was a really quick read. I probably read this in about an hour and a half, and I loved it. It was quick. It talked about really difficult things that Charlie and Nick went through in this one. This one was a lot heavier than the other ones. It was still feel good, but I didn't expect it to take a little bit of a sadder turn. I only have one left, and then the sixth one is supposed to come out either this year or early next year, and that will be the end of the series. So if you haven't read this, I do recommend it. It's so good. It is a comic book themed story, and it follows these two high school boys who get into a romance with one another, and it talks about friendship and coming out and accepting who you are and being different and so many different things, family issues, but it's so beautiful. It is done so well. It has a diverse cast. Everyone is just so heartwarming. You just love everybody, and it makes me feel so good when I read this. So I definitely really enjoyed this. Another 5-star for me. I'll rate them all 5 stars because I really love them. So please read this one, or start with the first one at least. Then I also finished the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy with As Good as Dead. This was a whole journey and a half. I didn't expect it to take such a dark turn, especially after following Pip in the first 2 books and then refreshing my memory with the TV show that came out a month and a half ago. This one was dark, and I don't want to give out too much. I don't want to say too much because this is the last book in a trilogy, but it does follow Pip, who was a high school girl, and she initially started off by trying to solve a murder. She thinks that the person who was considered the murderer was wrongly accused, and so in the first book she goes through that whole journey of trying to figure out who she thinks genuinely murdered this teenage girl many years prior. And so the books continue on different journeys, and she starts a podcast, and this one is just darker. Obviously things have happened since the first book. She's not the same person from the first book to this book, but I still really enjoyed it. It took me a little while to get into it and accept the changes in her. Like I said, they were a little jarring to me, but once I accepted that this is where the book was going to take me, I will say I really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down. I wanted to know what was happening at all times and how it was going to turn out. I rated this a 3.75 stars. Now, this is a book that was really hyped up online, and I wasn't really sure if it was going to be my cup of tea or not. I did like that I'm already reading off the back of the book that it did have to do with an older female, like someone who was a grown adult with kids and a house and everything, which I always find really refreshing, because a lot of the books that tend to get hyped up are about college or high school students. So this was different. It is Nora Goes Off Script, and this follows Nora, who is a screenwriter and she writes like those cheesy Hallmark movies, but when her marriage ends, she ends up writing this heart-wrenching story about why they broke up and their divorce and, you know, everything that led up to the end of their relationship. And so when the movie gets picked up by Hollywood, 2 really famous actors come to her house and they decide to film the movie in her house, which is when she meets Leo. And so this book is about finding yourself after divorce, finding new routine, and also dating again once a relationship has ended. I do wish that this book went a little more in depth with a lot of things, but I also really liked it for what it was. It was a romance novel that was quick and to the point and still really beautiful. I really enjoyed it. It was a 4.25 stars for me. In terms of paperbacks, this was the last one on the list, and it is Daydream. I finished this one literally yesterday. Today's September 30th. I finished this one on the 29th, and I will say I'm a little bit disappointed in this one. I loved Henry in book 1. You don't really see him that much in book 2, but I loved him so much in book 1 that I was very excited. I feel like maybe the way that I pictured him in book 1 and his mannerisms didn't really come across the same in this book, but maybe it's because we got his perspective. This follows Henry and his female counterpart, which her name was Haley, and Haley is older sister syndrome. You the one who's in charge of everything, the family manager, the people pleaser, the one who doesn't like to rock the boat. And Henry's Henry, and he's going through the stress of becoming captain after Nate from the first book gives him the role of captain. And it's kind of showing you the balance of her finding out that being in a relationship or caring for someone is more than just what she had always thought it was in her head, especially as a bookworm. While I do like what they were trying to achieve with this book, I just didn't love it. The conversation felt so stilted. I feel like it didn't have the magic of Wildfire, where it felt so realistic in the growth of their relationship. I don't know. I just felt it was awkward and not great, and I just didn't love it. This will probably be my least favorite book in the Maple Hill series as of now, and while I can't say don't read it because I feel like she's going to write another one eventually, I will say I was very disappointed in this. And while there were things I could definitely relate to from Hallie's perspective, more so because I also am an older sister, it wasn't enough for me to like this one that much. I would rate this one a 3.25 or 3.5 stars. Now, the final book that was on my official September TBR was Too Busy for Love, which was an arc that I received, and I feel like it was really cute. It follows a girl who used to work at a hotel as a hotel manager, and she finds out that the hotel itself was an undercover brothel, so she is out of a job, but before she's completely out of a job, she is suspected of being an accomplice in this brothel. So she is under house arrest with the chef, and during that week while they are under house arrest, they create such a beautiful connection. It's kind of like a friends with benefits situation, but true friendship as well. And at the end of the week, they go their own separate ways. And so she goes back to her family's house, and he goes back to, I think it's Scotland. And from there, she's looking for a job, and she ends up on a job on a reality TV show, managing and producing, kind of like behind the scenes, being like somebody who gets what people need and organizes everybody in behind the scenes of it. And she ends up afterwards making connections and so on and so forth. I think my problem with this book is that I went into it thinking it was going to be a romance, and it really truly wasn't. I feel like it was a little bit lacking in the romance aspect. It was more of a personal journey. I would consider this a literary fiction with a romantic subplot, and while there was nothing wrong with it, it's really hard when you put expectations in your head of where the story was going to go, and it just didn't. I think they spent the first 15% of the book together and the last 10% of the book together, like the romance aspect, and the rest of it is her just trying to figure out life. While there was nothing wrong with the book, for that reason I did rate it a 3.25 stars. Now, in speaking about A Little Life, I only got 112 pages in. It took me a really long time to get through the first 70 pages or so because the perspectives switched so quickly, and I feel like they were just giving me a lot of background plot and information without really moving the story along and making you figure out where it's gonna go. And then finally, I think I got to page like 80 or 90, and then now the story has picked up significantly where I just want to keep reading. So I think I'll make more of a dent in this next month. So fingers crossed. Now, let's chat books that I did not review in my August wrap up because I finished them right after I finished recording the video, because I recorded it I think like a few days before the end of August. The first one being The Backtrack. I really don't know how I feel about this one. I think it was really fun. It gave me Wattpad vibes with like an emo 2010 rock twist. So the story follows a girl who is a flight attendant, and she has to go back to her hometown after many years because her grandmother is not doing well, and she wants to move to a nursing home of some sort. And so from there, she meets up again with her old high school best friend slash crush, and she feels a little bit remorseful, wondering like what maybe could have happened, which is when the magical CD player comes into play, where there was a CD player, and every song that she plays kind of takes her into this alternate reality of what would have happened if she made a decision that was different, kind of towards dating him while they were in high school. And so that's kind of how it goes. She listens to a song and it takes her back into the past, into a different reality, and then she goes back into the present, and then she's spending time with her grandmother and then her guy best friend. It was very strange. It gives me Ashley Poston, but not done as well as Ashley Poston, if that makes any sense. The whimsical magical CD player was kind of fun. I did love the throwbacks of like some really cool rock music from the time period, but I also felt like I wish that that there was more romantic buildup. It was just like a little insta-lovey for my taste, and I mean, if it wasn't for the plot being so fun, I would have rated it much lower. I think it's a 3.5 overall. Then let's do Off Camera by Chelsea Curto. She is one of my favorite indie authors at the moment. This one follows Reed and Avery, and they're both social media managers for different professional sports teams, and they kind of have this online rivalry where they kind of just like make digs at each other, even though it's not the same sport, just because, you know, they both have this whole sports thing going on. And after a terrible day on Avery's part, she actually meets Reed without realizing who he is, because they don't know who is the face behind these social media accounts. And it's kind of funny seeing them chat behind the scenes through their social media, but also chatting to each other through text, and then meeting in person and seeing their like friendship for each other change from that. And it's really fun. It's such a good story. While this isn't my favorite story of hers, there were certain things that just I didn't connect with personally. I wouldn't say that this is a bad book. My favorites will always be Face Off and Behind the Camera, but this one was really fun, and I honestly can't wait for the new one that comes out in October. This was a 3.5 for me. Then I read Incidents Around the House, which was the famous thriller horror book going all over online, and I did listen to the audiobook, which was voiced by like a creepy 8-year-old, and I want to say I was not wowed by this. I feel like the plot was repetitive. It didn't really creep me out. I wasn't really that interested in anybody. It was fast and it was short, so that was the bright side, but it just wasn't for me. 2.5 stars. Next up is Annie Bot. I actually spoke about this in my fall recommendations. I did read this in September and I love it. It gives me Black Mirror vibes, sci-fi, a little creepy, a little scary the way it works. It's about a guy who purchases a robot and gives her full autonomy, and so she has free will and learns and has thoughts basically like a person would, but she's also an adult because she does adult things, but she's learning things like a child. And it's kind of going through the feelings of her having emotions but also feeling like a slave and not really having full free will. It's really good. I don't know, I keep changing my rating. I think my initial rating was a 3.75, and I'm pretty sure this is between a 4 and a 4.25 right now because I just can't stop thinking about it. It's just such an interesting topic, and especially in this day and age where I feel like AI and robots are not that far into the future, it's a very, very interesting topic overall. Next up, we have my final summer read for the year, and that is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. While I did love Every Summer After by her, this one did fall a little flat for me. This one follows Fern and Will, and this is a dual POV. So in present day, Fern had just taken over her mom's hotel after her mom's passing, and then in the past tense, it kind of shows you the 24 hours between her and Will meeting right after she graduated college. And it's such an interesting thing because of course you're always wondering like what went wrong, why aren't they together anymore? And so it kind of shows you how they were when they met for that one day, and like 10 years later. While I do love the concept, I do think there's something really strange about falling in love with someone in a single day and then obsessing over someone after 24 hours. It just doesn't really make much sense to me, and I'm not very much of an insta love person, so I feel like if their flashback took place over a 24-hour period, maybe this would have been a lot better, but 24 hours for me was just, I didn't love it. And also, like, she did have a boyfriend in the 24-hour moment, so like her thought process was a little questionable too. I don't know, overall I just wasn't a big fan of this one. Overall, I rated this one 3 stars. I did a really good job going through arcs last month. So first was Potions and Proposals. This was a really fun Halloween read, which is like, it got me into the Halloween mood. This was a kind of a rivalry to lovers romance, and it follows 2 witches who, after a potion gone wrong, get their magical powers like flip-flopped. Like originally she has water and he has fire, and they switch powers, and they don't know really how to switch them back, so they have to teach each other how to use these powers while also being expected to get married because they're betrothed to one another, to kind of like help the coven be united. So it's like a whole thing where like the pressure of like the getting married, the mixing of their powers, and finding balance in their town while like, you know, these elements are just very different. It was super fun. It was very whimsical. It was very quick and easy, and I got through it so fast, and I enjoyed actually both perspectives a lot. I think this would be a 3.5. Then we had Primetime Romance, and this was a very strange one for me because this is about a girl who is obsessed with a show, which I think is like based off of Dawson's Creek. So the girl is obsessed with the show kind of like their world's version of Dawson's Creek. And so after a crazy night with fake friends and feeling underappreciated on her birthday, she makes a wish. And she makes a wish kind of where she could be in a place where everything could kind of just work out and everything would be okay. So she wakes up and her roommate end up inside the world of her Dawson's Creek, and it's a little weird. So like they have to like pretend to be characters from the story, and so she goes through this plot in her head. The show got discontinued, and so she has to continue on the plot in the way that she thinks the story or the show should have really ended before getting canceled. And so she thinks she's supposed to be with like the golden boy initially, and I don't know, I just didn't love it. Like the plot concept is kind of fun, but it also gave no room for the romance at all. I feel like the guy main character who was the roommate went into this and he was the perfect side character, and she was just not the most likable. She was in denial. The romantic moments weren't that great, honestly. I think this is honestly a 3.5 stars. Yeah, I'm gonna do a 3.5. I was gonna do a 3.25. Initially this was a 3.75 for me, so for me to bring it down to a 3.5 I feel like is a fair bet. And honestly, that's it. I read a lot of books between the 3 books that I didn't review in August and all of these now. I always get so shocked when I'm chatting books for this long because I just don't expect to talk this long because I didn't realize I read so much. But yeah, there we have it. These are the physical books I read. I checked a few off and I'm so excited to share with you what I'm planning to read in October because I do have a really fun list planned. And so until next time guys, bye.